But I wanted to bring in a friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine, who also worked in the Reagan administration. As a matter of fact, he worked in the political office. And that would be Jeffrey Lord. How are you?
I'm just great, my fellow Reagan revolutionary. How are you?
I'm doing great. Now, we have this long piece, Jeff, in the National Review by our friend, Elliot Abrams, and he is a friend.
Indeed.
And I'm reading this, I'm saying, did he serve in the same administration as I served in? I mean, I don't remember Newt Gingrich being the problem, attacking us all over the place on foreign policy. Do you?
No, absolutely not.
Well, explain what you wrote today.
Elliot Abrams would come to the White House. He was very kind, and I loved the guy. He would come to the White House and do these briefings for us on foreign policy. I would always call him. He would always come. He was terrific. He never said to me, ever, Newt Gingrich is a problem on anything. And there is a reason for that, because Newt Gingrich was not a problem. To the best of my knowledge, he never said it to anybody in our office, or certainly I would have heard about it. And our office at that time included Governor Daniels and included now former Governor Haley Barbour. We would have known if Newt Gingrich was a problem, because we would have gone and talked to Newt Gingrich. So I never heard this from Elliot Abrams at all, ever.
And yet he writes about it in National Review Online, as if it was a big issue.
Yeah. Well, I have no idea.
Let me just add one other point. They point out Reagan's diary as if there's something wrong there when Reagan mentions Gingrich once. And by the way, is not doing so in a negative way whatsoever. You would think, and I've read those diaries, they're fascinating.
Yeah.
You would think if Newt Gingrich was a huge problem on our foreign policy, on Iran-Contra, on and on and on, his name would appear more than once in the diaries of the President of the United States.
Absolutely correct.
And they appear once having nothing to do with it.
That's right. Newt Gingrich was at one with Ronald Reagan on values. There's just no question whatsoever about it. Or, believe me, this would have been a big deal then in the day. We would have had to do something for it. And, a powerful White House, as the Reagan White House was, could have done something. I mean, we could have cut him off on any number of things. This is, in the world of hardball White House politics, never happened, ever. He was considered a solid supporter of the president's, always.
And you are aware of Nancy Reagan's reputation, a wonderful lady and loyal to the bone to her husband.
I can only say, Mark, when I saw that video, there is no way on God's green earth that Mrs. Reagan would have stood up at a fundraiser, would have been there at the fundraiser, first of all, that had anything to do with Newt Gingrich. If she thought for a second that Newt Gingrich was an enemy of Ronald Reagan's or was attacking Ronald Reagan, she never would have done it.
And I want to play this for everybody. Hold on, I want to play it for everybody, Jeffrey, while you're here. This is Nancy Reagan in 1995 at the Goldwater Institute in Arizona at a dinner. I want you to listen to this, folks, and what Jeff and I are telling you is, knowing Ms. Reagan as we did and her reputation, there is absolutely no way that she would speak well of an individual who would have spoken ill of her husband even once. Am I right about that?
Absolutely.
All right, here we go. Cut 5, go.
They believed that government should simply get out of the way. Ronnie and Barry fought for those principles which today have been overwhelmingly embraced. So they must have done something right. Just take a look at the extraordinary men and women who make up the 104th Congress, and of course its distinguished speaker, Newt Gingrich. The dramatic movement of 1995 is an outgrowth of a much earlier crusade that goes back half a century. Barry Goldwater handed the torch to Ronnie, and in turn Ronnie turned that torch over to Newt and the Republican members of Congress to keep that dream alive.
So you and I have to dismiss what we know, what we saw and heard with our own body parts. You and I would have to pretend that Nancy Reagan in this one case embraced somebody who was repeatedly hostile and outspoken against her husband. This is just crap, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's crap. I mean, I didn't hear the name Mitt Romney there, but the point is, she would never have been in the room with Newt Gingrich. And let's just remember, in 1995, at that point, everybody knew that President Reagan was now suffering from Alzheimer's. The fact that she was there instead of Ronald Reagan himself was because he was ill. Under those circumstances in particular, for her to go out of her way to do this, to be there, to hold the flag for Ronald Reagan and pass that torch in his name to Newt Gingrich tells you all you need to know.
All right. Well, I mean, I really don't know what else to say other than the what's been going on the last 48 hours has absolutely shaken me. Because if this is what the conservative movement has become, one lie after another weaved together in a basket of bullcrap, then I don't want to be part of it. And I don't believe this is what the conservative movement has become. I believe we are up against an entrenched establishment that does not want to give an inch. They see their new friend, Romney, who at the same time Nancy Reagan was saying this, Romney was saying he's a progressive and he was independent and he had nothing to do with Reagan and Bush. At the very same time, she's saying this. The same exact year, well, the year after. And the stuff I'm reading, the stuff being I'll tell you what bugs me, and I told my audience this, Jeff. For Romney, who until really the last 5, 6, 7 years has suddenly seen the light and become a conservative. Imagine that. You're an adult, you're in business, you have a family, you live through the Reagan era, and it's not until you want to be president of the United States as a Republican nominee that suddenly you're conservative across the board. You know what I'm saying? And then you're the guy attacking in 08 Fred Thompson from the right. You're the guy attacking Giuliani from the right, Mike Huckabee from the right, and now you're attacking Newt Gingrich from the right? You got to be kidding me.
What this means is he's full of tactics. He is not full of the conservative philosophy and conservative values. That's it. And you know, I went back and looked, Mark. Ronald Reagan got more votes in Massachusetts than Mitt Romney did when Ronald Reagan was running for president of the United States. And here is Mitt Romney running from him, and yet he couldn't get as many votes as Ronald Reagan. Now, what does that tell you in terms of general philosophical values and understanding the way the political world works?
I'm watching my new friend, I can't hear him, Charles Krauthammer, commenting on the Gingrich and Reagan issue, and it's hilarious. In 1984, my new friend, Dr. Krauthammer, was a Mondale guy. I mean, it's just hard to stomach all this that's going on. Really? What? Tell us, Doctor, exactly what did Reagan think of Gingrich? How would he know?
Right. Absolutely.
And by the way, I say this not as a special pleader of Gingrich. I've told you and others that if I were voting today, I'd be voting for Santorum. But all of that aside, what's right is right.
Right. I mean, I have been critical of all of these folks. I've been critical of Newt on the Bain Capital situation, et cetera. But,
exactly.
You know, I was there, Mark. You were there. We know better than this. I mean, this is just, to use your word, this is just crap. This is absolutely not true. And to try and sell it smacks of, desperation? You know, anybody can put any characterization they want on it, but I will say it's false. Flat out false. It is not true.
Now, let me just say this. We're only having to discuss this because of what we have heard and seen for the last 48 hours. I think it is outrageous that we even have to deal with this. This Republican primary has been dragged into the toilet, and it started with these 3 weeks, multi-million-dollar super PAC with Romney staffers attacking, trying to drag somebody down. You'll recall Newt said, let's have debates, one-on-one, Mitt. I don't have any money. He didn't have any money at the time. They wouldn't go for it. These are tactics that are very destructive to the conservative movement, in my humble opinion. They're very destructive to our ability to beat Obama. I don't mind a long primary season where we're duking it out on substance and principle. But the problem is Romney can't do that. So what they're doing is giving stuff to websites, giving stuff to columnists, giving stuff to guests on Fox and these other shows, and trying to destroy their opponents. And I'm going to tell you one other thing. If Santorum were the main opponent, I think they'd be doing the same thing to him.
Absolutely. I mean, this is situational. Situational ethics, as they say. I mean, it's Newt today. If Newt vanished tonight and it were Santorum or someone else, this is what they would be doing. And suddenly Rick Santorum would not be a conservative at all, and we would go back and hear all these kind of things. This I find disturbing.
So Rick Santorum, they'd be twisting his words. They'd be calling him a liberal from a guy who 10 years ago was distancing himself from Reagan and 15 years ago was calling himself a progressive.
That's right. That's right. I mean, this is astonishing. Absolutely astonishing to think the chutzpah here that you could get away with this. I mean, this is just flatly not so. I mean, you can say the sun rises in the west, but that isn't going to make it happen.
You know, I pride myself on doing this program, getting into some of this stuff, but always wanting to keep the focus on where it needs to be, on Obama, on what's going on in the country, and I'm going to continue to do that. But you can't ignore 48 hours of nonstop, unbridled, vicious, poisonous attacks, and just pretend this isn't going to have an effect on the outcome.
You know, I began to suspect when Romney got this line off in that last debate about the line in the Reagan diaries. I mean, it took, and I thought immediately I need to write about this because I know where. I thought I knew, and I was correct where this is going to go, what they were going to do. And today was pile-on day on Ronald Reagan. So, you know, I've been able to detail it, and I'm sure that you have been able to do the same thing. I mean, there's too many of us alive and running around here that were there. I mean, we were there in the room. So I mean, Mitt Romney was nowhere to be seen. He didn't even share the same values here.
Is Mitt Romney in the Reagan diaries? I doubt it.
No. As a matter of fact,
not even once.
I looked. I didn't even see George Romney.
Well, you know, the thing is this. They make the argument, well, he's only in there once. My point is, if he did all the things that they say he did, and he was so rotten to Ronald Reagan, Reagan would have put him in the diary a whole lot more, and he would have said those things about him.
Absolutely. I mean, I've gone through, and I give you a quick example, is Jack Kemp. And Jack Kemp is in there, and they had disagreements. There is no question that Jack Kemp was your ultimate Reaganite. But did they disagree on occasion? Sure. Did Newt Gingrich say things in disagreement with Ronald Reagan on occasion? That's what happens when you're president of the United States. Did he ever express some sort of fundamental value difference with Ronald Reagan? Absolutely not ever. Or, in a practical sense, those of us in the White House political office would have been talking to Newt Gingrich about it, and it never happened. When we talked to Newt Gingrich, and we talked to him a lot, it was always in terms of what he could do to help President Reagan. Always.
All right, Jeffrey Lord, former. What was your title in the political office?
I was Associate Director of Political Affairs, White House Political Affairs.
All right, my brother.
Grand titles when you're young.
Oh yeah. Well, keep up the good work. God bless you.
Thank you, my friend.
You take care. I was Associate Director of Presidential Personnel at the White House, and I was also Chief of Staff to the Attorney General of the United States, among other positions, and I never heard any of this stuff. Gee, imagine me going through life so blissfully and not knowing that Newt Gingrich was a Marxist, Reagan-hating mental case. I never knew that, and yet I read all this today.